Hey guys, welcome back to Sad Dad. My name's Dave Abkary and I am a comedian out of Fresno, California, and this is a podcast where I sit down with my fellow funny friends, my fellow comedians, and we talk about dads. Hi, how are ya? How's your week been? There's a couple of crows right outside my window that are just going nuts. Can you hear it? I was like waiting for them to stop, but they weren't. And I was like, I'm just, okay, we're going with the crows right now. Man, it's been kind of a fun week for me. Did a lot of, had some fun shows this week here at home. And then I went out of town on Sunday during the day. I drove and did a couple of real rough shows out of town. I did this benefit show in Tehachapi, California, which is kind of like up in the mountains, heading towards like Southern California. And it was a benefit show. It was a cause I really believed in. It was a addiction recovery program, and they're this organization. They're looking to like build a facility, and so they're raising money. And one of the guys involved in that is a comedian, and he's been booking friends of his other comedians to like do these benefit shows as like entertainment. And so I was like, yeah, it's a great cause. It's a little bit of a drive, but they were going to compensate me for gas money, which is nice. And but it was 3:00 in the afternoon in Tehachapi, California. I got to go up and do 15 to 20 minutes of clean comedy for these people they all had to be in there. I don't know, 60s to 70s, and then there's children running around. It's at a soup kitchen, and man, comedy just takes you to some weird places sometimes. It went better. It went better than I expected it would, but it was still a soup kitchen in Tehachapi for some elderly folks, and so I don't know. It was wild, and then I went down after that. Went down to LA and did a show in LA that was less than fun, but that's what you got to do sometimes. That's what you got to do. And then came back for our Monday, Tuesday shows, and they were both great. They were super fun, and we had Kelsey Lane headlined, and then last night my buddy Nick Petrillo headlined. He's headlining again tonight, Wednesday night. He's sitting over there playing Titanfall 2 right now in my living room. He gets real eye of the tiger when he plays video games. I was like, hey man, can you put on these headphones? Cause I got to record this intro to my podcast. And he's like, you want me to turn it off? I was like, no, just put on these headphones. He's like, what do you want me to record the pod? I was like, no, just put on the headphones. Just put on the headphones. You can keep playing the game. You just put on headphones. Yeah, he's hearing me right now. He's so focused. I'm shocked he even heard that. So I love Nick. But what I I love you too, Nick. I got a great episode for you today with a very funny man named David Sharp. I mentioned him last week on the show. It's kind of a cool two-part series where I have David, who's a comedian, and his partner, who's also a comedian, and they have a baby together. And they've been touring around doing comedy with their baby. Like it's kind of an interesting peek into parenthood as a comedian. What does that look like when you're both comedians and you have a child together? And so kind of got to bear witness to some of that last week when they were up doing our shows with us. And but yeah, it's a great it's an interesting chat with David. It's a little on the short side, and it's my fault that it's on the short side because the day that we recorded this, I had 3 podcast interviews scheduled. I had to like bang out 3, and I was on kind of a limited time frame, and David was the first one, so I was like overly conservative on the time because I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time for everybody else, but then I ended up having more than enough time for everybody else, and so it was a little bit of a bummer. We could have gone a little bit longer because we were really getting into some interesting stuff, and so it's my bad, but even though it's a little on the short side, it is a great episode. It's a great chat. David's a super interesting dude. We talk about all this stuff. I mean, obviously we talk about his dad, but we talk about sketch comedy, which isn't something we talk a lot about on this show. I don't have a lot of sketch comedians that come on the show, or improv. I'm sorry. And then we get into him being a dad, and that's again something that we don't get a ton of on here because there's not a lot of comedians who are parents. So it's pretty unique. And then next week I kind of have like the second part of this, which is which is his partner Shayna, and we have a conversation on the other side of the whole thing. Her being a mom, a comedian mom. So it's good. I'm excited to play this for you guys right now. So without further ado, here we go. This is David Sharp. All right, yeah, you can go pop in those headphones, and then, my poor listeners have heard me talk about that block of wood so many times it's become a running joke on my show.
Check. Block of wood.
Block of wood.
Block of wood.
That's good.
If I was a captain, this would be a mutiny.
Yeah, I didn't realize my best friend made that. I didn't realize for 10 years that he misspelled mutiny.
I thought it was like a mutant joke.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll have to ask him. Maybe that's what he was going for.
Do you want to turn off the television? I don't need it.
If you want to just mute it, if that way if you need some flashing lights for the baby, and we're
Which one is? Am I 1 or 2?
You're 2 here.
Turn it down just a hair.
Oh, is it? Yeah, here we go.
Just
check. There we go.
Check.
All right, we're firing hot. You said you had been to because you said you'd met Danny before, so you. Like 5 or 6. Did you meet him in Fresno? Were you performing here in Fresno?
Yeah, I think just at like a mic a few years ago. My family is all from this area.
Yeah.
So especially my grandpa one time got sick and I came up to take care of him. And so I would like take care of him through the day and then go up to Fresno and do comedy at nights and stuff.
Right.
And so so I've known him for a little while now.
Yeah. He was running a spot called Mother Mary's for a long time.
Yes,
it was pretty
that's
popular.
the one that I met him at. Yeah.
Yeah, and did you? But your family's from here. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up?
So I was born in Santa Barbara.
Oh, nice.
Are we going? Is this
Yeah,
it?
we're
this is
firing,
it. It's happening.
Yeah, we're going.
In that case, I was born in Santa Barbara. I was born in Santa Barbara, California, but my dad is from the area. He was born in Hanford.
Right.
He was actually technically born in Armona. You have to do that whole thing where it's like, oh, where's your dad from? Fresno. Oh, yeah, I know Fresno. Oh, in that case, it's actually Hanford. Oh, I know Hanford. Well, in that case, it's actually Armona.
Like, paring it down
as far as people know. Because if you say, oh, my dad's from Armona, people are like, I don't know what that
what's
is.
that?
I do not know what that is. And that's fair. It's tiny.
I don't even know if I know if I've been to Armona. It just
you know
like,
Hanford.
I know Hanford.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It's literally right next. They're like connected. There's no like dividing line between the two.
Have you taken Shayna and out to Superior Dairy in Hanford?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. That's,
is it like I've been there a few times and I've liked it. It's like that's like the hot spot though, man. Is that?
Well, it's Hanford. There's not a lot, to recommend the town.
Yeah.
But my grandparents tell stories of like drinking milkshakes for a quarter every night after working in the fields there.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's nice. There's a lot of
family,
really cute antique shops.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
Take my word for it on it. Yeah, I guess.
We do less antiquing when we're here.
Oh my God, antiquing. We're going antiquing. The high school I went to, we always competed against Hanford, and I was in the marching band, and you guys always had killer marching. Well, Hanford always had killer marching bands. So.
Yeah, I never went to Hanford. I know there's the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs?
And the Huskies, another dog. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, are these school mascots or gangs?
Really?
I don't know. Okay. I know the Bulldogs are. But yeah, so you grew up in Santa Barbara. What was that like?
Well, I lived there till I was 8, so I didn't have a huge frame of reference, but it's nice. It's a very, very pleasant little. Now, whenever I say, "Oh, I was born in Santa Barbara," people are like, "Ooh, fancy." she, Oprah. She technically lives in Montecito, which is right next to Santa Barbara. But it's become more. I don't want to say upper crusty, but more like. It's like more yuppie, I guess.
Sure.
And my family moved to Colorado and then came back, and they went back to Ventura because Ventura is a little more like our speed. It's a little more down to earth. It's like Midwest beachy, I guess.
Sure. And what kind of? Do you have a big family? Do you have a lot of brothers and sisters?
Not huge on this side. It's just me and my little brother, and then my dad had one sister. Our grandparents, and so his sister stayed in the area. She still lives in Hanford. That's where we're staying while we're in town. And then he migrated southward.
I got you. Oh, well, cool. And what kind of kid are you growing up? Are you a real precocious kid, or are you Are you into sports? What are you doing?
I was not into sports.
No.
More precocious. I've always been into, performance in the arts and stuff. My first play was 2 years old.
Whoa.
Although it might have been 3. My parents did just get into a disagreement about that like 2 days ago. My mom was like, he was 2 years old. My dad was like, he was 3. Ordinarily, I would believe my mom, but 3 sounds more plausible for putting a kid on stage. I was a flying monkey in The Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
I bet you were like the best flying monkey too.
I was the youngest flying monkey because the younger kids were like munchkins. That makes sense.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be a munchkin, so I threw a tantrum and they let me be a flying monkey, which was like the slightly older kids. So I was a diva from the start.
Yeah, you sound like a nightmare to work with.
Begging for stage time. Like, I will not play a munchkin. I refuse. My writer clearly says flying monkey or I walk.
Flying monkey and a warm baba.
Flying monkey or I walk, which I just learned to do.
Really throwing your weight around there.
That's right.
All
40 pounds, yep.
Well, I mean that's great. I mean, so what was you're into the arts? I mean, what was your draw there? Were your parents
Nope,
like artsy fartsy?
Not at all.
No?
My dad has worked in IT, and my mom has done a bunch of stuff. Most recently, she was a project manager before retiring.
Okay.
And had like her own graphic design business. Worked for she worked for an insurance company for a while. She's been a jack of all trades. And my dad is always, people ask me, oh, what does your dad do? I'm like, computers?
Sure, yeah.
Pushes keys?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mainframe? Email? Connectivity? Something.
Sure.
Works for the county of Ventura now, and he's like almost retired. He's like right there.
Is he? It seems like there's always like two kinds of dudes when it comes to retiring. Like, I mean, there's the guys that are like really ready for it, and the guys that don't know how to not work. I mean, where does he fall in that? You think?
I guess he's a little bit of both. I think he's ready for it, but like he was supposed to be retired now, and he was supposed to be retired before now, and then he is currently in Germany on his retirement trip.
Oh wow!
Even though when he comes back, he's going to have like 4 more months. They like keep like being like, what if you just worked a little longer? And he can't say no to that.
Sure.
He's had slight workaholic tendencies throughout his life, and those did not rub off on me at all.
That's real.
Work allergic, I think, is what I became.
And so you're growing up. Are you real into the theater thing? I mean, obviously you had the flying monkey situation, but are you?
Yeah. I did theater throughout my life. Like high school, and then went to college for that, which is very wise. If I were to impart advice to your audience of fathers and sons, go to college for theater. Don't just move to Los Angeles and do it professionally while you're young and beautiful. Spend those years accumulating student loan debt. It just makes sense.
This sounds like great advice, and I'm so glad I had you on today.
Definitely.
That's great. And where were you going to school for that?
I went to school at the prestigious institution of Hastings College in Hastings, Nebraska.
Okay.
The theater hotbed of Nebraska.
It's just so flat.
Everything's so flat, from the scenery to the acting to the landscape itself.
Are you? Are you like killing it though? I mean, I don't know. Is it like the talent out there? Like, is it,
when you mean when I was in Nebraska? Yeah. No, I did very well. Let me brag about all the lead roles I had.
Yes.
That would be low class. I won't do that. But no, it was easy to step in and start getting the meaty roles. The juicy parts, the ham in Endgame, Credo in No Exit.
Well, hello.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And I mean, like,
two theater nerds are like, everyone else is like, shut up.
The other guys are like, talk about comedy.
Yeah.
Where does the comedy come in for you and all of that?
I started comedy kind of backwards for a lot of people. I took a class in grad school about stand-up and read a bunch about it and decided I would do it. And so, like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm the funny guy. I should just be funny on stage. And I'm like, I've read about this. I can figure it out logically.
You nerd.
Yeah. Very nerdy, very... like intellectually I can break this down and figure out how to do it.
That's so funny. Were you any kind of like a comedy nerd growing up? I mean, were you listening to albums?
I was a big, I guess more than stand up, I was like a sketch nerd.
Oh, sure.
I watched Saturday Night Live, The State, Kids in the Hall, and especially grew up on like my dad's Firesign Theater records.
Oh, cool.
Do you know Firesign at all?
Not well. I mean, just I mean, I've heard it referenced, and I've
it's like 70s like album comedy, and it's very like wordplay heavy, stoner comedy, but like classy stoner comedy, not like Cheech and Chong stoner comedy. Hey man, I made the biggest joint ever, but more like subtle stoner wordplay, and obviously like the marijuana was more of a background influence than a foreground influence.
Sure, yeah.
But very, very funny, silly, kind of. People would compare him to Monty Python. I would say there's nothing that compares to Monty Python.
Sure.
Monty Python is one of the things I grew up on too. I remember watching Holy Grail for the first time while I was at my aunt's house here in the area at like way too early an age. Like could not have gotten any of the jokes, but just like their patter, and it's so tight and rhythmic, and like I was in love with it from the start.
Yeah, and so did you start comedy in Nebraska?
The baby.
Oh, and there's the baby.
Illinois. I went to grad school in Illinois, actually,
okay.
And that's where I started doing it. A little town called Carbondale.
Okay.
Which is the hometown or where Hannibal Buress started doing
Nice.
comedy.
That's
Our one
pretty cool.
claimed comedy fame.
Hello. Yeah, I mean, what's the scene like out in Carbondale? I mean, obviously Hannibal Buress, but I mean, is it a pretty...
Well, Hannibal kind of created the scene, and then when he left, it died. And then when I got there, as the scene kind of got reborn. It kind of restarted right when I started doing comedy. And so then... me and a handful of friends were responsible. I started it.
Hello. Okay.
Retcon the history. It was all me. I was one of the people that really pushed to get new rooms and to keep rooms going and to bring in new people.
I got you.
I honestly couldn't tell you what it's like now. I hope it's still going. I assume that it is, because the thing about a college town is you're constantly churning new people,
and that could be for the better or for the worse. Yeah,
exactly.
It really go either way,
because people are coming in, but then people are also constantly going out.
Right.
And so like every year the people who are like in charge of the scene were changing, and the legacy got passed to me, where I was the kind of person who was in charge of organizing everything. And then after a year I was moving along back out here and had to pass it to other people.
Sure.
And I don't know where it stands now.
How'd your first mic go?
I mean, in my head, it went great. I will also admit to the fact that I drank very heavily at that time.
As I get that. Yeah,
and so, like, my memories are, like, it's all like, I was hilarious. Everybody loved me. What I will say for Carbondale is that their open mic crowds were like good show crowds out in LA. Like, I still dream about those open mic crowds. We got like 60 people that would come to our open mics.
Yeah.
There was one where it was like 80 plus people for an open mic.
Yeah.
Because that was the only comedy in town.
Right.
There weren't like professional shows. And so if you're like, oh, stand-up comedy's happening, we'll go see that. And it's, it's college kids and they drink and, don't necessarily like, quote unquote, care about the comedy.
Sure.
But also like they're real audience members, which... in LA is like the real gold. That's what you're hunting for. And, in LA, an open mic is only comics, and it's very depressing. No one wants to laugh. Everybody's bummed that they're there instead of like on stage at the factory or at the store or whatever.
And even if they're, I mean, and not only that, I mean, they're in their own heads thinking about their own set.
Exactly.
Like,
of
fuck
course.
your set. And what about my set? I got to think about what I'm going to do up there. Yeah.
And like, I try to be a good audience member when I'm at a mic, but also like, you can't. What are you going to not think about your set? That doesn't make sense. You're there to do your set. You have to think about it some. And and also just your brain processes the experience differently from like an audience member. If you're only there to hang out and laugh, then you're getting a drink, you're relaxed. If you're there to do your set, not only is your attention split from like your set and your mind is working in like a processing, creating mode as opposed to like a relaxed listening mode. And
100%.
It's hard to be the same kind of audience member.
And did you go straight from Carbondale to LA? Was that your trajectory?
Well, Ventura, I guess. So
Ventura.
Southern California scene. And Ventura has its own different scene, but also I kind of view it as just an overlap with LA.
Yeah,
they're so close. It's an hour. And I still go back and forth and do stuff in both.
Yeah, and Ventura is Orange County, right? Is that
other direction?
It's north.
Yeah, it's a little bit north of LA, and so it's like from north to south, Santa Barbara, Ventura, LA.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so you came into that scene with some comedy chops then.
A little bit, yeah. I'd been doing it for about 3 years, I guess, going into that.
I mean, that's helpful when you get to LA. I always, people that like start in LA, I'm like, man, how did you do that?
It's tough.
Yeah, like how did you?
It's tough because you don't have people giving you real honest feedback, like good and bad,
and you're fighting for 3-minute spots. Whereas if you're in a place like Fresno, I mean, you can get 5 to 7 minutes very, very easily, and then usually we'll bump them up so they're doing 10s, within a few months,
right.
And so I mean not necessarily that they have 10 good minutes, but at least they can I have a space for them to feel.
But you also have better audiences, and so like 10 rough minutes goes over a lot better here than 10 rough minutes in LA.
Absolutely,
where people will just they'll turn on you because whether or not they're stand-ups, they're all industry.
Sure.
They're like, I would be so much funnier than this guy. Boo. Boo.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I meet somebody, it's like I started in LA. I'm like, I have so much respect for you.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
That's chops.
Yeah. Because get out on the road, man. That's So that's great. And this is you're David Sharp.
I am David Sharp.
You're David Sharp.
Yeah.
And this is a podcast where we talk about dads.
Yeah.
And you have a dad.
I have
You've already
a dad.
mentioned him a couple times. And I always like to start right at the beginning. I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit. Your dad grew up in Hanford.
He grew up in Hanford. He was born in Armona, to the child of Archie transplants, which is, I think, a lot of Archie and Okie transplants are a lot of how the area was settled.
Were they like Dust Bowl refugees, like the whole Grapes of Wrath type of thing?
Not quite that desperate, but pretty close.
Yeah.
My grandpa was 18 years old, and he married my grandma, and the next week they just decided they're coming out to California. Mm-hmm. They packed up with like 2 or 3 other couples, and they all just came out here, and one of those couples left after a month or something, and my grandparents stayed.
Wow.
They worked in the fields and worked in canneries, and then my grandpa got a job irrigating with Bennett and Bennett Irrigation.
Oh, we talked about this last night. Yeah.
Anytime I see a Bennett and Bennett sign, that's that's the company my grandpa helped grow.
That's great. And
they were basically a startup when he started with them, and then he was with them for 60 years, 70 years, something crazy like that.
Can you imagine that nowadays, being with a company, being with Google for 60 years? You're like, whoa, right? That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially because, I'm a staunch member of the gig economy. Mm-hmm. I'm a freelance writer, and so I go from client to client like crazy. I have not had a one job thing recently for more than a year and a half or something like that. And so the idea of 70 years with one, doing the same people, going to the same office. The office was literally around the corner from his house. So it would be a 5-minute walk for him every day. He'd walk or take his bike or something like that.
Sure.
And every day, just doing the walk around the corner to the office. And part of me, I have a nostalgia for a thing I never experienced for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to live upstairs from walk downstairs to the liquor store or whatever that your family owns.
That you own, yeah.
That sounds great, but then also the idea of waking up at the same time every day, going to the same job every day, that also drives me crazy.
And there's virtually no escaping it.
Exactly.
If things are going good, great. But if you're feeling stressed out about work, it's right one floor below you. If
you have one of those days where you wake up and you're just bummed out and you don't feel like it, you can't not go.
Right.
Somebody's just gonna walk upstairs and knock on your door and be like, "Hey, you need to come to work."
Come on,
you can't. Also, you can't fake a sick day and go to the ball game. Or
Yeah,
something like
100%.
that. Oh yeah, I'm sick, boss.
So, and this is your grandpa that's working for Bennett and Bennett.
Yeah, my grandpa worked for Bennett and Bennett, and then my dad he went to college at Sequoias for a couple of years, and then
nice.
transferred to UCSB, and that's when he settled down in Santa Barbara.
He gets into computers, huh?
Yeah,
Your dad?
Yeah, early adopter.
Well, okay, yeah. So he's kind of on the bleeding edge of technology, and
Yep,
you know,
very much so.
What was? Did he ever talk about his draw to that? I mean, what was?
I think that it was new. He was like a sci-fi kid, like a technology buff at the time, and this was the new cool thing. And he didn't want to work in the fields like my grandpa. He didn't want to have a manual labor type job, and computers offered the promise of something new and exciting. Being able to go to school for it then, I guess he was one of the people that was projecting forward and thinking like, this will be the industry of the future, and he was right about that.
Totally.
As much as it kills me to say my dad was right. No, he was definitely correct about that, and made it his living for not one company, but for 50 plus years.
wild,
He's been
man.
doing computer stuff.
Wow, good for him, man. That seems to be. I mean, do they look at you like? I mean, they're like, what is their take on you being a freelancer? I mean, do they?
They're congenitally proud of me. Like, they can't help but like, part of me is like, no, you're supposed to tell me I'm a fuck up. Like, no, you're great. We love your little comedy skits.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny when they're supportive, but then. Like, sometimes they'll say the most insulting, like inadvertently insulting things to me. On Sunday night, my folks came out to the show, and that morning my dad was like, "Are you hosting or are you performing?" And I was like,
well, the posting is performing.
yeah, that was kind of. I was like, it is, but like, I mean, like my dad is just totally like. He doesn't look at it like that at all. Like, he's like, you're the host. It doesn't really matter what you do. You're
right.
like he just like the nuance of that is just lost on him. And when somebody asks, are you hosting or performing? It just like cuts me so deep.
Yeah.
But he has no idea, like like that it hurts me that bad. But yeah,
The one for me is my folks are always like, anytime we'll be at a place and they'll see like a poster for like, oh, stand-up comedy.
Right.
You know, it'll be like on the show is like, Wanda Sykes, Kevin Nealon. They're like, oh, well, you should find out who runs that, and you should get on that show.
totally.
I'm like, yeah, I should do that. I'd be like, I would love to be on that show with Wanda Sykes and Kevin Nealon, but I got to tell you, I don't have these Saturday Night Live cred.
It's that's like, my mom was like, well, you should think about headlining more, and I'm like, what?
Every goddamn day, Mom. Every goddamn day.
It's like, you have no idea.
I would love to, yeah. I would love to.
That's a great idea, Mom. Yeah, you know what?
Right.
I'll just go headline.
And you can't like say anything about that because like it comes from a good place. So you can't be like, don't tell me I should be on good shows, Mom.
Right.
Like, yeah, of course I want to be on good shows. You want me to be, we both want the same thing.
Right. Oh, that's so have they come out and watched you perform comedy? I mean,
so many times. Many times.
Oh, that's great.
They don't come see stand up as much anymore because like I think I burnt that bridge a little too much.
Sure.
They come and see more improv these days because it's always different.
Sure. Yeah, that's real. Yeah. Do you do improv?
I do improv.
Oh, I didn't realize that. How cool.
Stand up, improv, sketch,
You
whatever
know,
I can get my dirty little hands on.
Yeah, I like it. Well, that's rad. And so your dad, he's doing the computer thing. And at what point does he meet your mom?
They met in Santa Barbara, working for a company called Infomag, which is not around anymore. I'm not sure exactly what her role was, but he was like the weird night guy that was like running their computers at night, and like everybody made fun of him for being weird and
pale and pasty and in the basement.
Yup, correct.
And your mom's like, he seems charming.
Yeah. And she was married at the time, and then the marriage kind of fell apart a little bit, all the way, I guess.
Sure.
And then there was one night where they were playing board games and drinking a bottle of Old Crow.
Yes.
And one thing leads to another, and I exist now.
Hello. All right. Well, they made it work.
There were a few things in between there, I guess.
Sure.
It wasn't just like Old Crow, David. But I did have a taste for the whiskey, so
Did you?
whatever that means.
Yeah. they didn't have to make my middle name Old Crow, though. That seems a bit much.
That was a little weird, yeah. Old Grandpappy. David Old Grandpappy Sharp.
Yeah. Just J-Mo. Your middle name's J-Mo, not even Jameson.
Jack Daniels Sharp. That's not bad. That sounds okay, actually. Jack Sharp.
That's great.
We thought about calling Porter Jack for a little while.
That's
that was like
that's
on the top 5, top 10.
Man, beyond just the movie Incredibles, a baby named Jack is the cutest thing to me. Yeah. Oh, you got an old man name. That's adorable.
Jack. Mm-hmm. Short. It's tough. Jack.
Who messes with Jack? I don't mess with the Jack.
Jack Sharp.
And and that's got a good ring to it too. Jack Sharp. I like that. Yeah. Well, cool. And so they, like you come along and they're just all in on the marriage and the having the son and all that. I mean, it's were they I mean, it sounds like they had a pretty good understanding of one another. I mean, I know you said they had like a little bit of an argument about whether you were 2 or you were 3. I mean, were they pretty civil growing up?
Yeah. No, they weren't really fighters or anything like that. I can't remember. You know, they can get like testy with each other, but more it's like my mom will be like, "I'm a little grouchy with your father today."
Yeah, and that's kind of cute.
I get it. I get grouchy with him sometimes too, Mom.
Sure. Yeah, my parents are like that too, where they have this kind of like. I mean, they've been married for 45 years now.
You know, it's a long time. Anytime it starts with a.
I know it's wild. It's
the same with mine. How long have my parents been together? Let me think. I'm 39, so 42 years, something like that.
I mean, it's got to get to a point where like you've been married longer than you haven't been married, and it's just. I mean, even if things aren't going great, you're like, well, you know, what else am I going to do? You know,
right?
We're just going to see
at this point. I'm going to hit the dating market at 70.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. But it seems like they enjoy each other's company, though.
They enjoy each other's company 85% of the time.
Oh, that's nice. And you were saying they're in Germany right now?
They're in Germany right now.
All right.
Yeah. This is their big, like I said, it was supposed to be my dad's retirement vacation, but he'll have a little more work to do when he gets back.
Sure.
But I was telling my aunt he was in Germany, and she's like, "Oh, he must love that because like when we were young kids, he was always playing like the German officer, and I was the prisoner." You cannot escape until you count to 10 in German. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is a long-running wish for my father. Interesting.
Cool. Glad he's finally having that. And one thing I wanted to ask you about. I mean, we've already heard him a couple of times on but you're a dad.
I am a dad now myself.
Yeah, and you're actually only the third dad I've had on the show, on the Dad Podcast.
Wow, you should get more dads.
Well, I would love to, but you know, comedians
shouldn't breed.
There's that.
I agree. And mostly they should be sterilized.
One of the dads that I've had on my show was my dad. So,
that's fun.
Yeah,
that's a special episode.
Yeah, it was my Father's Day episode last year.
Apcarian on Apcarian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I mean, he's 5 months old now.
Your dad? That's young.
My dad is 5 months old. It's wild.
Yeah, my baby, he's 5.5 months old here. And he's pretty cute.
Everyone pretty cute.
So.
Oh, he is adorable. Just being a baby over there.
Yeah, he's just sitting there being a baby.
Just being a baby.
This morning he was being a real baby about it.
You've got some great bits on fatherhood already.
Well, stuff. You know, it's hard. It feels weird to not do fatherhood stuff now. Because it's such a huge event that everything else kind of becomes a little more trivial. And so
100%.
You know, can't talk about dating. Right. It becomes the most important thing in your life, and so it's hard not to write about it and not to make that the focus.
And kids are just so fucking funny, man. Like kids are so funny. I mean, like my daughter just the other day, because her mom has been like real tiger mom on her lately. You know. It's because she's been playing softball, and her mom played softball, and her mom's really competitive. Right. And so her mom was really kind of getting on her case about stuff. And I pulled Abby aside, and I was like, hey, you know, I know your mom has been a little hard on you lately, but it's just because she loves you and she wants you to do well. And I just want you to know we're so proud of you. Like we both love you so much, and you're everything we've ever wanted, and we just couldn't be happier with who you are and where you're at. And she's like, cool, do you have any chapstick?
I'm trying to have a moment here. I'm trying to get real serious with you. You're like, yeah, I get it, but also I'm a little chap. So.
I need some chapstick. pick. I'm like, all right.
right.
You know, I'm like, that's
Moment
hilarious.
over.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just everything I was trying to accomplish with that conversation just bounced right off her.
You know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Maybe she just doesn't know how to give the intimacy back. But you know, it's got to register in some degree.
Sure,
you think?
I would hope so. But I mean, they're just they're so much funnier than we could ever hope to be. You know, and so it's a great mind. Wealth of material to mine, you know. So
I can't wait until he actually starts talking, because like already the babble to me is hilarious, because he gets very excited and like screeches, you know, like it's just crazy noises, and I think that's funny. But like I think the funniest time for kids is like once they learn how to talk but don't know like what you're supposed to say, or like, you know, they have the tools, they don't know how to use them. Now that's fun.
100%. It's that's great, dude. Oh, I'm so excited for you. Yeah, you seem you seem to really like be enjoying fatherhood.
I think it came along at the right time. I'm older, you know, than a lot of dads, and if I had a kid in my early 20s, it would have been disastrous. I would not have been a good father. If I'd had a kid in my early 30s, I probably would not have been the father that I am now. But I was more ready for it, and I'm with a partner that you know, I love and want to be with, and have a relationship that's much more stable.
I have been bragging about you guys nonstop. I'm like, they go on tour and perform comedy as a couple with a baby, and it's like the cutest fucking thing.
Yeah, we're pretty cute.
They're super cute. I was just like,
that's the nice thing about having a baby, is that like for being just like a big dour white guy, like people all of a sudden like you know, like walking around Trader Joe's with him on my chest, everyone's like, oh, let me get out of the way for you. You know, it's just you get a whole different energy back from the world. You know, everyone thinks you're sweet and lovable, as opposed to like, here goes another fucking white guy.
This guy,
Let's get him, guys. Oh boy.
Well, this is the part of the show where I normally ask for like a dadecdote, and I didn't know if you had any dadecdote material based on your dad, or I mean, I guess maybe something as a dad now.
Well, about my dad, I guess the coolest that I think my dad ever was, like I said, he went down to UCSB, and if you know anything about the history of UCSB, which coincides with the history of our country, during the 60s, there were riots that became kind of a regular thing. He was there when the bank burned down, which is like a big event in UCSB history. But there was a time when he was in the dorms, and the dorms were getting tear gassed. And so he and his friends turned the big speakers that they used to have, because like back in the like 60s, the way you proved you were cool was like having like the amp and the big speakers, the cool sound system. And they turned the speakers out, and they played the Who's My Generation out to the cops.
Wow.
As they were being tear gassed.
Oh my God.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, like,
wow.
Wait, you were a badass?
Yeah.
That doesn't register with the like sweet nerdy.
That's so funny. I mean, it's so cool, I guess would be the better term for it. Wow. Does he have any of that in him now? Does he have any of that rebel spirit now, or is he?
He's more encouraging of the rebel spirit than rebelling himself these days.
Yeah.
You know, he enjoys sitting back on the couch with a like nice Manhattan and watching others be rebels.
Yeah, that's
good for you, rebels. Stick it to the man. I agree. The man should have it stuck to him.
I love that. Well, cool. But David, you've been so fun today. If people want more David Sharp in their life, where should they find you?
Granada Hills. Just come by and visit. We'll make you a cup of coffee.
Sleep on the couch.
Yeah. Online, The Sharp David, Instagram, Twitter, all that.
Nice. Well, I'll link all that in the show notes. Man, thank you so much,
dude. You're the best.
And you brought your baby. It was so good.
Dave Apkarian's the sweetest.
And we're back. David Sharp, everybody. He's great. Make sure to follow him on all the social medias. If you could rate and review Sad Dad on iTunes, I'd love you forever. Also, too, if you need to get a hold of me, saddadpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on all the social medias at Dave Apkarian. And if you'd like to support the show financially, you can do that. There's a link to the Sad Dad Patreon in the show notes. And we'll be back next week with part 2 of this little series with Shayna Brennan. That is David's partner and the mother of his child. So we get into some pretty good good mom stuff, and I always love having the mom stuff on the Dad podcast. So great, guys. Thanks so much for being here, and that's it for this week. Adios.